Доброго ранку, шановні пані.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome at the Crisis Media Center of Ukraine. Welcome online participants. We are beginning with our briefing, non-punished for the blood of Maidan. What are we about to do this? Our speakers, Oleksandra Matviychuk, Chairman of the Board of the Center for Civil Liberties, Katinka, Schmidt, Head of Justice, Freedoms and Civil Spaces from United Nations Human Rights Monitoring Mission, Vitaliy Tytych, Lawyer for the Families of the Heavenly Hundreds, Oksana Pokalchuk, Director of Amnesty International Ukraine, Liubov, Galan, Coordinator of the Ozone Public Observation Group. Please welcome. Good morning, dear colleagues. Thanks all the participants. I'm glad to welcome you at the Crisis Media Center. Today we mark the 6th anniversary of violent deaths which took place on the Maidan. Today, together with the civil partners, we are trying to exercise civil control over the investigations. It's a very sad occasion. However, the attention of the society towards the investigations and of these 4,700 cases is unfortunately not very intensive. However, on such anniversaries, we get a chance to have a broader outreach. We would like to raise awareness of the problem. We would like to tell why we still do not have the results we are expecting. First, I would like to dwell upon is the importance of the results. The results can be obtained by means the appropriate investigation. So now I'm talking not about the investigation itself, but about organization of these investigations. Therefore, we have to emphasize on the organizations. Talking about efficient investigation, meeting the criteria of the Council of Europe, like speed, accountability, and so on, we do not observe in 100% of cases that the law enforcers identify the perpetrators. There are democratic countries in which the police and courts work much more efficiently than in Ukraine. Nonetheless, they do not often succeed. However, the law enforcement system and the system of justice should be in the position to take all necessary steps for making the perpetrators liable. To put it simply, but for a properly organized investigation, the society cannot expect any results. What can I say about the organization of these investigations? Unfortunately, under the previous Petro Poroshenko's team and under the current Zelensky's team, the organization of investigation is beyond the attention. Let me retrospectively tell you that in 2014, in spite of the initiative Euromaidan SOS, in spite of lawyers for the families of the Heavenly Hundred, the investigation itself was scattered across various authorities, law enforcement institutions, and investigators. As a result, the investigators in different facilities or institutions even didn't know what's happening among the colleagues. Thus, we lost a full year. Afterwards, a coordination center was established, which managed to merge all these investigations, started investigating into the events of Maidan in a systemic way. So this events were regarded instead as a systemic attack of the authorities on the society. At the same time, the investigators were not well equipped. They did not have any funds, any resources, any computers or offices. So the organization of the investigation did not correspond with pathetic words about investigating the most important case of Ukraine. And Yuri Lutsenko became the prosecutor general, and SOS organization, Ukrainian right protection organizations had to protest in front of the president's administration because by his orders, Yuri Lutsenko started ruining this logic of a unified coordination center. The center was deprived of some of powers, the number of investigators was reduced. So the center or the investigation started collapsing. Unfortunately, this was the state in which the investigation was inherited by new team of Vladimir Zelensky. Unfortunately, he worked along the same lines. The General Prosecutor's Office lost its powers in terms of investigation, and all this incredible number of case files, case volumes, over 4,000, were transferred to the National Bureau of Investigation. Just imagine, you have to transfer terabytes of videos, of photos, 4,700 volumes of materials. It's very difficult, and people who are to receive these materials should spend a year to get themselves familiarized with these materials. I'm not talking even about the fact that some things cannot be transferred in form of paper. So then the families, the lawyers, the subordinates of the victims again started protest in front of the president's office. Unfortunately, the authorities didn't listen to us. And after Evgenia Zakrevska had started starvation, the society paid due attention to this problem, and the respective amendments to the legislation were made. As we see, the previous authorities as well as the current authorities do not pay enough attention to the investigation. The investigation itself is highly complicated. Some cases require high level of professionalism, time, some experiments. The internal resistance of the law enforcement system should overcome. Therefore, the investigation is much complicated by all these obstacles. In January 2020, the specialized department under the National Investigation Bureau was asked by the civil society to establish a coordination center. Nonetheless, a number of very strange appointments in terms of the staff took place. My colleagues will talk more about this. Here in this hall, we got people who suffered from these violent actions under the systemic attack which was taking place within these 3 months. Armless protesters fell victims to the massive attacks, but there are also some other events like beating of a student or beatings of people on Bankova Street. Then the first killings took place in January. Some people driving cars were also persecuted. So SOS organization worked 24/7, and we learned about hundreds of people who suffered from beatings, tortures. Now we've got Oleksandra Koloshenko, Sergei Koloshev, Vitaliy Kuzmenko, Lyubomira Kepler, Vitaly Strutinsky, maybe a number of other victims who suffered from these violent deeds. They are all very well aware that these criminal deeds are not confined solely to the culmination in form of killings. Not only Yanukovych and his supporters are to be blamed for these deaths. We are within a certain paradigm, and according to this paradigm, the prosecution should focus on them because they should be held liable. Definitely, that's their fault. They had to be held liable for making a system which contributed to these events. According to the famous quotation, if there is a rifle on the wall, it has to shoot. Of course, nonetheless, we still have to hold liable some judges of the Constitutional Court. There are no steps made to make some MPs liable for voting against the rules of procedure, against the common sense and the standards of international law. They voted for the dictatorship laws. Then a part of them found themselves in the next convocation of the parliament. So there are some officials, apart from Yanukovych and his supporters, who retain their positions. They feel quite comfortably now, and the attention of the society and the investigators is not paid to them. So this middle link hasn't disappeared. It is still there in place, and very often they still exercise the powers. And I would like to complete my speech by saying that on the 6th anniversary, we hear very frequently the pro-Russian narratives. And these narratives are voiced by the Ukrainian MPs, by so-called Ukrainian experts who duplicate the messages about some fascist transformation, Nazi transformation. They say that the participants of Maidan events are a bunch of filth, and we know that there are people who have seen and experienced these events. We've got just a communicative memory, and this communicative memory survives only 3 generations. That's when you tell other people about your personal experience. And these voices, which sound quite loudly at the moment, is an attempt to combat this communicative memory. Apart from communicative memory, we've got only the cultural memory, which instills values into the description of Maidan's events. Now, I'm calling upon the civil society. This is our responsibility to fill the cultural memory with sense and values. When the generations who that have experienced these events themselves are gone, everything will depend on us. And if we do not work on the memory, it will keep just the disputes by some officials or politicians trying to make themselves important. There were people who tried to protect democratic choice and pay a high price for that. Nonetheless, there are some people who are trying to get the political dividends. And now I'd like to pay the floor to the lawyer of the Heavenly Hundred, Mr. Vitaliy Tytych. Thank you very much for passing me the floor. I had a little bit different topic, but I would like to continue the words by Oleksandra. On the sixth year after the killings, year after the killings, the biggest problem, I think, is not the investigation or impediments Yanukovych and his gang or Putin, but indifference of the society. So this indifference, it may sound wild, but nobody is interested. Everyone speaks about the punishment, about the investigation, but in fact, nobody is interested. Even the people who participate in events, who attend the anniversaries, even them, they do not know anything about the situation. They are not aware of the materials which work as evidence, which were scrutinized by the court system. This is the main problem. The institutional memory, the cultural memory can be developed, but it should not be developed on the basis of fakes or myths, but on the basis of true facts. However sad the situation is with investigations, with the trials, the main problem is that the society does not utilize the facts which are already on the surface. Therefore, there are some opportunities to manipulate with the conscience, with the facts. It is possible to create the narratives, new narratives, which can be introduced to Ukraine and work against the Ukrainian stateliness. Now we have to stop talking in elevated language, but start using the true facts. It might be difficult to get some facts, some protocols, some minutes of trials. However, you can apply to us, to our partners, to the mission. There are people who do attend these trials, and you can get the access to the facts. Getting back to the problem of trials, of investigations, Oleksandra, in fact, named main problems. I just have to add a little bit of detail. Yes, indeed, this is the 6th year after the killings, and we have meetings. We used to have meetings every year during this period and talk about problems to which our conference is dedicated today. For the past 6 years, we talked mainly about the impediments of the pretrial investigations, as we called it. We talked about the law enforcement agencies not fulfilling their duties. They did not have the staff. They did not have the funding. But now we are talking about the impediments which have the signs of a particular criminal actions. And you know that there are criminal proceedings at the moment investigating into the deliberate destruction of evidence. This destruction was committed by the previous officials of the investigation agency. So These proceedings are in progress, they are underway, and we are able to answer the questions regarding these investigations. Everything has been investigated. Everything has been documented. Personally, I, as a lawyer, collected the evidence, and I do have the evidence of the fact that the investigation is being impeded or blocked. So there is evidence of sabotage, and this evidence is going to be transferred to the law enforcement agencies in a due time. The only significant organization achievement due to which we can speak about completion of the case here I imply the cases, the crimes committed on the 13th and 14th, 2014. That's a mess if you say that these crimes are not investigated. The cases are completed, and about 300 persons, or 345, 350, were presented with suspicions. Talking legally, we can say that the cases have been completed. It doesn't mean that the case is over. It's just another stage of investigation. The investigation enters the trial stage. Nonetheless, the pre-trial stage is completed, and now the efficiency of this investigation depends on a single factor. By means of pressure from the part of victims, lawyers, and society, we managed to establish this unified authority which coordinated the investigation into the Maidan cases. Technically, why was this coordination center established? Any lawyer, any forensic expert will tell you that the most efficient way to ruin the criminal proceeding is to scatter the case in different perpetrators, different authorities, institutions, and episodes. This manipulation was used for the sabotage of the crimes committed against the protesters. For you to understand, I'll give you an example, a very particular example. You can just compare the investigation into the events that took place in Kiev and investigation into another case, May events in Odessa. Who is talking about this case? Why was this proceeding destroyed? The answer is simple: because it was dispersed, it was scattered. The Department of Specialized Investigations tried to control the investigation. Nonetheless, it was kept in the region, and those perpetrators were never held liable. So this is the illustrative example. This is just a very simple example. So as of now, the case is not being investigated, and there is very low likelihood of punishing the perpetrators. So the evidence was destroyed and all other steps were taken to destroy, to ruin the case. And now our local clowns may continue their narrative talking about the authorities that burnt 10 Maidan protesters down in Odessa. Who is guilty? Who is at fault? Ukrainian society. The families of those who fell victims to the fire in Odessa, unlike relatives and families of people who died in Kiev, who managed to exert this pressure upon the law enforcement system. And the key thing is that this coordination center was based upon a concept. This concept focused on the criminal activity of Yanukovych, who usurped the power. Then this gang committed a number of very heavy economic crimes, and then when the protests against these deeds started, the heaviest violent crimes were committed. So this was the criminal organization. This criminal organization combines the suspects, the victims, and the actions. I do not agree with Oleksandra in this case. She said that Yanukovych himself arranged some criminal system and it acted as a rifle in the third act of a play. No. The terroristic act committed on the 20th of February was facilitated by the highest leadership of the state. Since summer the previous year, the evidence is available, the evidence is in the court. But who knows about that? I see the people who follow the trials. Do you know about this fact? This is the key thing. If the society knew about all these facts, the fakes would not be possible. So people, I'm urging you, if you are interested in something, it's the 21st century now, just go to YouTube and watch the court hearings, watch the interrogations of snipers. That's all you need. We have investigated into these events. The evidence is in the court, and since the evidence was available, Putin required to break the process, to break the proceeding, and the proceeding indeed was interrupted. Therefore, we had to press upon the government to make amendments to the legislation in order to enable the system have trials in absentia. So this is an appropriate reaction to the negative circumstances. Vitaliy, thank you very much for giving us a broad picture of the situation. Thank you for your call upon the parliament, for your recommendations on what should be done in order to finalize the investigation. the MPs indeed have to adopt the legislative amendments. And now I'd like to pass the floor to Ms. Eva Katinka Schmidt for her to present the activities of Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine in terms of investigation into the Maidan events. Ms. Eva Katinka Schmidt is the head of Justice, Freedoms and Civil Spaces at the United Nations Human Rights Monitoring Mission Ukraine. Дякую, Олександра. Пані та панове, як вже Олександра сказала.
To welcome you all here. And I thank the Center for Civil Liberties for organizing this event today. As part of the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission, jointly with my colleagues who are also here, we have been following the investigations and trials of those responsible for killings and violent deaths that shook Ukraine in January and February 2014. Let us be frank, the results are still disappointing. For the killing and deaths of 20 men and 1 woman, the investigation have not even identified the direct perpetrators, those who pulled the trigger. Not for the first 3 killings in January of Serhiy Nihoyan, Mikhailo Zhiznievsky and Roman Senik, nor for the killings perpetrated during the anti-terrorist operation in central Kiev during the night of 18 to 19 February. However, at least a few senior officials at the time are now being prosecuted. For example, the former head of the Kiev City and Regional Office of the Security Service of Ukraine and the former head of the Public Security Police. Some investigations into killings and violent deaths of protesters were completed and trials started, but not a single one of them was finished. The trials are still suffering from significant delays. In the case of a civilian accused of abducting Yuri Verbitsky and Ihor Lutsenko, the trial has not been completed since it began in September 2014. In the case of a former high-ranking police official accused of organizing the killings of protesters on 18 February in Kiev, the self-recusal of 10 judges in 2 courts has delayed the commencement of the trial since July 2019. In cases where perpetrators are at large, trials show very little, if any, progress. If we look at the absentia trial of the former head of the Public Security Police, we see incredibly that the case has not progressed beyond reading the indictment since May 2018. We are concerned about the decision to release the 5 Berkut officers as part of the simultaneous release on 29 December 2019. They have been on trial since 2016 for killing 48 protesters in Kiev on 20 February. We are glad that the trial should be able to proceed for the 2 who have since returned to Kiev. However, for the other 3, despite the reassurance of the authorities that they will be tried in absentia, we can expect that their absence will further undermine the victims and their families' right to justice. I am mentioning these details so that you can get a sense of our bigger concern, that justice is not being delivered. Investigations are not completed. Trials are slow to progress or not progressing at all. In particular, we are concerned that, firstly, a number of high-ranking officials accused of involvement in the killings retain their positions, thus contributing to a chilling effect on their subordinates and reducing the likelihood of them testifying to police involvement in the killings. Secondly, insufficient funding and understaffing of forensic bureaus, which negatively affect their productivity. Thirdly, the Criminal Procedure Code does not allow for prosecution in absentia of those not found by the police, as it requires Interpol to put them on a wanted list, something that Interpol refuses, referring to Article 3 of its constitution. Finally, we are concerned that the immunity law, which hampers the investigation into the police killings, is also an impediment to providing justice for all victims. I recommend that you pick up our infographic. The one that is also visible on the banner here is included in a small publication that we will also upload on the internet today. I recommend that you take a look at this, as it details every single victim who was killed or died violently during these Maidan protests in January and February. It details it by the incidents, by location, and even the time of their death is in sequence, as far as we could reconstruct it from the information of the investigation. You will see the different icons for men, women, one journalist, policemen, and the color coding will show you only the green ones, only for the green ones, the perpetrators have been identified. The yellow ones, some perpetrators have been identified, and you will see quite staggering high number of red ones where no single perpetrators have been identified. In the more detailed infographic that you can pick up in the back, you will also see for each of them the circumstance of the death and the specific update of the proceedings in their cases. We see it as our role to call for establishing the truth about what happened and serving justice to all victims and their families. We will continue to make these calls and to report on the results of these proceedings to inform people in Ukraine and internationally, including through our channels in Geneva and in New York. It will take our joint efforts with the victims, their families and lawyers, with civil society and other partners, as with this event, to demand the necessary action. Thank you for your attention.
Я дуже дякую моніторинговій місії ООН з прав людини за те, що вони протягом всіх цих
To the monitoring mission for following the investigation of Maidan events and unbiased assessment of the events. Many colleagues have already mentioned lack of attention to the investigations, to the trials, and we know that the same journalists attend the trials all the time. And the supporters of the defendants are growing, actually. As soon as we identified this, we launched a new initiative called Ozone, and I would like to pass the floor to the coordinator of this Ozone initiative. This is a public observation group. Thank you. I would like to start with saying that 6 years ago, when I was in Institutska Street, the last thing I could imagine was that today, 6 years after, I would be talking about the problems with the trials, with the investigations. So actually, I have to acknowledge that at the moment it is possible in Ukraine to commit these crimes, and immunity is also accepted broadly in the society in spite of this appalling case. Of course, the problems occurred not today and not yesterday. The situation is full of problems from the very beginning, and this has been happening all the time against the background of the social indifference. Indeed, there are people, activists, families, they experience burnout, they have lots of problems with human rights, with the problems associated with the hostilities in the east of Ukraine. And in general, we observe the prevailing indifference of people who, on the contrary, should be quite attentive to the investigation and the trials. As Oleksandra mentioned, we have initiated a campaign. We train a number of independent observers for them to get the skills to analyze the court hearings and analyze the sessions. We do not have any opportunity to train them a lot because the activists are really very busy people. Therefore, our campaign has the motto 3 hours for the case of Maidan. We believe sincerely that people may really find 3 hours to attend the courtrooms. We've got a big number of requests to participate in this training. During the training, we explain people that the courts, the court hearings are not very similar to those which we watch on TV. This is a very hard game, survival game, so to say. The courts, the courts dedicated to killings, to shootings, they take place in more or less regular manner, more or less regularly. But in other cases, the court hearings are being continuously postponed in many cases because the solicitors of the defendants do not appear in court, and in many cases the reasons are not justified. And you may be sure that half of the scheduled court hearings will be either postponed or cancelled at all, and many people who attend some of the court sessions, they lose their spirits immediately after 2 or 3 such postponements. The investigation and the trial process is not dynamic at all. The judges and their assistants are frequently very passive, and people from the outside are not welcome in the courtrooms. We often observe that the secretaries or judge assistants are very negative to the presence of observers or journalists, especially in cases which are usually not broadly attended because they are not well advertised. Sometimes some funny situations may occur. The observers get false information on the courtroom just to prevent them from coming there. It looks like there is an intention to conceal some of the cases, some of the episodes, especially which are being artificially procrastinated. This is especially the case if the court sessions are for some strange reasons postponed. The work of observers, the work of the journalists who exercise the public control are not like superheroes. This is a very tedious, stressful work, our daily routine. Nonetheless, it should be done. It's very their control, the public control, is nonetheless very powerful. There is a demand for solving these issues. In the case of Maidan, we are not interested in political decisions. In order to get the results we as civil society have expected, when we talk about rule of law, about responsibility, we are talking first of all about fair and disengaged court, which will deliver the fair verdict and restore the trust to the state, restore to the human rights observed in this country. The locomotives of these processes should be not just a small group of people. It's small but powerful group of lawyers, victims, activists. But the society should be the major trigger, and the society should produce the social demand. Please attend our website if you are willing to attend the court sessions. If you would like to undergo our training, please apply to us. We will do everything possible to make as many people as to make a lot of people in the position to attend the court hearings. Thank you very much, and now I'd like to pass the floor to Ms. Oksana Pokalchuk, who is the director of Amnesty International Ukraine, for the finalizing address. Thank you very much for coming. Many thanks to the panelists. It's 6 years since the events, but we feel as if the Maidan events are becoming less and less important. It looks like the society is losing interest. The investigation, the trials, the official position of the state toward the events is the key factor which may contribute to restoring the trust to the system of justice in Ukraine. Impunity gives rise to impunity. When such appalling cases are not being investigated or not communicated to the society, I mean the communication between the state and the society, on what's going on the effects of the investigation, the society then has the sense that there is no interest, there are no prospects, there are no opportunities to have any impact. So this is like hopelessness, this is like dead end. It was very important to learn from the colleagues today that indeed there is some hope, and there is some positive dynamics. These positive steps should be communicated. The society should become aware of them. There are lots of episodes in the case of Maidan, or lots of elements. It's very difficult to follow all of them. However, some appalling cases, some success stories should be demonstrated to the society as a sign of hope. The steps are being made to hold the perpetrators liable, and we as a society, civil society, should regain trust to the system of justice. We as the international organization are following the investigation since the time of the beginning. And we are not the only organization which follows the events on the international level. We are going to continue our pressure upon the government of Ukraine in order to increase the number of experts, a number of expert institutions which might speed up the investigation. We would like to have a sufficient number of investigators and judges for efficient finalization of these cases. We have to remember the victims, and the families of the victims are behind each of the case. This is a big number of people who lost trust to the justice. We have to support them. If we don't, we won't be able to change the social narrative. We do live in the country in which, well, you understand everything may happen. No, we don't understand this. I'm angry. My colleagues are angry, and the activists are angry. We will be pressing upon the government, upon the authorities. We will be informing you about the events on Maidan, and we are asking you to be angry, to start protests and request particular actions from the government. Thank you very much. We are ready to wrap up our press conference, and I'd like to say just a couple of words. First, today is the 6th anniversary of violent deaths. If you are willing to join us, if you would like to transform your anger into some constructive result, you can join us. You can attend the court hearings. The victims, their families, the lawyers need you. And the second thing I'd like to say for the journalists present here, there are people who suffered during different events. Liubov Kepler, Vitaliy Tytych, Miroslava Kepler, Mr. Kolosha. If you are willing to ask questions or provide your comments, it's better to consult these people present in this room. Please stand up for the journalists to see you. If some journalists do not know you yet, may see you now. So victims, relatives of those who fell victims to Maidan events can be approached by the journalists after the press conference. You may be asked about your opinion on what's happening. Thank you so much, and bye-bye. Dear colleagues, journalists, within 5 minutes, the next event will start.